My name's Paul Olbrantz, Clear to Close Brokers. Welcome to 2026 Housing and Rate Forecast. We are going to cover three myths homebuyers have. We're going to cover where interest rates and housing prices are going, both as it relates to housing, both nationally and locally, by the way. We're going to talk about how buyers win in 2026, four things that they need to know and do to make sure they buy successfully. And most importantly, you're watching this video from my YouTube. If you find this information helpful, if it helps you down the path, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you know anybody that is looking to buy or sell or refinance and you find this valuable, please send this to them. My second ask is education is great, but education without momentum, without action is just pointless. If you are looking to buy in 2026, at the very end of this presentation, I'm going to give you an opportunity to schedule a hopes and dreams conversation where there's no credit pulls, no applications, nothing, just me and you strategizing how to help you and your family buy in 2026 and position yourself to get the best interest rates. Now, speaking of buying, is buying a good investment? Well, I have some data for you. We're going to go back all the way to 1942, and these are families that have bought in these years and have held on to the property, that home for 10 years. Can you guess, before I bring up the slide, how many families have lost money, or how many years did somebody actually lose money on their investment? This is going to blow you away. The correct answer is 1. If you bought in 2006, now this goes back all the way to 1942. If you bought in 2006, you lost 3% if you held on to that property for 10 years. That's incredible. Let's get to the three biggest myths that home buyers have. Number one, let's start with, I am waiting for interest rates to drop. Now, the question I always have for people is why, and what do you think is going to happen? To understand why this may not be the best strategy, we have to break down that, like everything, real estate has seasons. There's a high rate season, a low rate season, a seller's market, and a buyer's market. Depending on which market we are in or which season you're in is going to dictate whether or not it's a good time to wait for rates to go down. Right now, we are in the high rate season where people in the season have negotiating power. They have time to think. Inspections go, they have inspections. Where in the low rate season, when interest rates drop, there's fierce competition. They can't get their credits for closing costs, and there's overbidding. And in fact, a lot of people have to waive contingencies where they wouldn't necessarily want to. So it's really important, especially when we go back to the 2 to 3% days. You know, we have to remember, low rates did not create happy buyers. They created absolute desperate buyers. And by the way, the people that won in the 2 to 3% rate were the people that bought. Whoops, I went the wrong way here. That bought when the rates were 5 or 6%. You have to remember, low rates do not favor buyers, they favor homeowners. Number two, the market is going to crash. We're going to break this down here. There is a lot of news media saying that, you know, U.S. foreclosure activity increases in 2025. Foreclosure filings rise 14% as FHA borrowers face greater risk. The truth is, the data does not support that. Here, let's take a look here. If we look at 2024 and 2025, the level of foreclosure activity is absolutely normal, and it's actually below normal. When we go back to 2007, 2008, 2009, look at the spikes in foreclosures. It was tremendously different than where it's at today. Not to mention the amount of equity people have in their houses compared to 2008. It doesn't even compare. It's like 12% compared to 65%. And here's one of the main differences as well from today to those times is, you know, over half of Americans have an interest rate below 4%. So leaving their house it's not like renting is any cheaper at that price point. When back in 2007, 2008, renting was about half. Now I'm using just exaggerations here, but it was a lot less than the housing prices. So people had no equity and it was cheaper to rent and their values lost tremendously. So they were just vacating to save money, where that's not what's happening today. Number three, the feds control 30-year fixed rate. My friends, this has cost home buyers more money over the past year, waiting, regardless of what I said, what I told them to do, that the feds do not control 30-year fixed rates. They actually control short-term rates. The bond market controls 30-year fixed rates. The feds control home equities, credit cards, and such like that. By the way, there's a lot of information on these slides. If you want the slides, I will email them to you. But what happened is once somebody got in contract, they hear the feds are going to reduce the rates by 0.25%. They wanted to wait to see what happened. What do you think happened? The feds reduced the rates 3 times in 2025. What do you think happened every time they reduced the rates? 30-year fixed rates actually went up. Take a look here. In September 17th, when the feds reduced interest rates by 0.25%, 30-year fixed rates went up, as did in October 29th, and as it did again on December 10th. Waiting for the feds to cut rates is not a great strategy. It's going to cost you money. All right, let's get to the 2026 forecast. Let's start with mortgage rates. Now, if you want a breakdown of all these numbers I'm going to talk to you, reach out. We're just going to give you a high-level overview just to keep this forecast within about 15 to 20 minutes. What controls interest rates is going to be inflation, employment, and the feds. We're going to get to those three in a second. But first, to give you an idea of where rates are at, we need to look at the 10-year Treasury. And also there is a gap between the 10-year Treasury and 30-year fixed rates that has been fairly consistent up and until 2020. And as we progress and become more of a normalized market, that gap is getting closer and closer to where we're going to actually be able to predict where rates are going to go. So if you take a look at that spread between the 30-year fixed rate and a 10-year Treasury, going back to 2010, 2011, it's been between 1.6 and 2%. 2%. But when we got to 2020, it really kind of went crazy and it had a mind of its own. In fact, it was lower than 1.6 at one point, and then it spiked up all the way to 3%, where now, as we're starting to get to January 2025, it was at 2% and now, or 2.6. Now it's currently at 2.12. We're projecting that this is going to get back in that spread between 1.6 and 2% to about a 1.9. Now, taking a look at the 10-year Treasury, going back here to October 24th, the lowest it's been is 3.6 and 3.7. The prediction here is that in 2026, it's going to reach about a 3.8%. So if you take a look at the 10-year Treasury, where we think it's going to go as low as 3.8%, and the spread narrowing down to 1.9, we are going to get an interest rate of 5.7%. Now, the things that are also supporting some rate reductions, remember we talked about those 3 prongs. Unemployment is going to continue to rise. Inflation is going to continue to decrease, as well as the Fed's fund rate will be reduced this year. Now, the unemployment, inflation, and Fed's rate, it's all kind of, you have to picture like this recipe, and it all goes in there, and what we're looking for is anti-inflationary news. All those things bring good news as it relates to inflation, which should definitely improve 30-year fixed rates. Now, the forecast for 2026 as it relates to 30-year fixed rates, we have Fannie Mae at 5.9, NAR at 6%, Bright, Zillow at 6.1, Wells Fargo, NAHB at 6.2, Realtor.com, Redfin at 6.3, MBA at 6.4, which I believe in, I follow MBS Highway, and they are always spot on that it's going to be about a 5.7%. But it's really important to understand that rates are not linear. And by the way, it's about a 5.99% right now. And so, that decline that we're anticipating to 5.7, 5.75 really isn't that much. And what you're going to find here is that today you can actually get lower rates by some strategies I'm going to tell you about because of what season we're in the real estate market. But going back to rates are not linear, what you can expect if we look back at 2005 is rates to really kind of fluctuate. They go down, then they go back up over that line, and they go down. What you need to know is that it's impossible to time these interest rates at its lowest peak. The strategy is, once you find that perfect house, if you do reach it where rates have bumped up above the average, there's always a great refinancing opportunity. But this is why you need to work with a lender that is going to continually keep you updated on interest rates. I am shocked at how many people get pre-approved. Then they ask me what rate I can give them when they talk to their lender for the last time a month ago, and they're quoting that that's the rate they're going to get. The rate you're going to get is the rate once your offer gets accepted, then it goes to the market, and then you can see where you can lock in your interest rate. Let's get to real estate. The biggest news as it comes to real estate in 2025 is, there was buyer fatigue. And the next chart, I believe it's the next chart, that shows that when rates get above 6.6%, buyer activity really slows down. As you can see here from January 2025, there has been a lot of buying fatigue, and there was a little spike there, probably had to do with interest rates. And now people are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to drop. By the way, I want to say that again. People are waiting for interest rates to drop. If you are one of those families, you're not alone. So here's what happens when interest rates drop. Right here, you're looking at, I'm going to bring this up for you, a spread of average mortgage rates and pending home sales. As there's an indirect relationship between average mortgage rates and pending home sales. As rates start to decline, housing pending sales goes up. As rates start to go up, pending sales go down. So as you can see, starting in about, August, September, rates started hitting that low point of about 6.5, 6.625. You're starting to see buyer activity really start to pick up. So if you're one of those families that are waiting for interest rates to drop, there's a lot of other families out of there, which, by the way, is going to move us from that one season of higher rates into the lower rate season, which has a lot more buyer activity, a lot more competition, a lot less negotiation strategies there. So as we take a look at what we think is going to happen with home values, because rates are coming down and buyer activity is picking up, here's what we see at a national level. I'm not going to read it all, but we'll just start with the top three. NAR is saying 4%, Fannie Mae's 1.3%, Zillow's at 1.2%. The average nationally is 2.16%. MBS Highway, Barry Habib, the man, has it at 3.5%. But what do you say we take a look locally? Marin County, 5%. Historical, 5.6%. Sonoma County's at 5.68%. Solano, 4.94%. Contra Costa, 5.281%. And Sacramento is a little bit over than 5%. Why are we so much higher than the national average? In certain areas, there's just not much more places to build homes, and or building has slowed down, bringing the competition up with the same selected houses up, which is going to put that upward pressure on housing prices. So now we know that rates are going to go down a little bit, right? And buyers and buyer activity is going to pick up, which is going to put some pressure on housing prices. How do you position yourself in 2026 to win as a buyer? Well, number one, it's very important to understand the cost of waiting. So if you are thinking that you're going to wait this out to see what happens, here's potentially what you could be looking at. You could be looking at, I'm going to make this slide a little bit bigger, paying an additional $32,000 for the same house, same price today as towards the end of the year. Now, there's a lot of factors here. Number one, right now, because of the season we're in, the high rate season, we're still seeing, but we're starting to see that slip away. Sellers negotiate and pay your closing cost. So that's about $15,000 that you may not be able to have at the end of the year. We have single digit appreciation expected between now and towards the end of the year. So if you find the right house today and you're able to negotiate a fair price, which we're going to get to in a second, you are going to win. Whereas if you were to wait a year, it could really cost you a lot of money as a result of the season, not getting your closing costs paid for, appreciation, and competition. Number two, this is going to be the big one. So the number one is credit versus price reduction. So you find the right house. A lot of people, they want to negotiate with a seller because that's the season we're in. But a lot of people are negotiating this the wrong way. They're asking for a price reduction versus a credit. So let me share with you the difference between a price reduction and a credit. So right here, let's say you're looking at a house at $900,000, putting 20% down. Rates are lower than 6.49. This is a one I did a while ago. Your total payment on that house, which includes principal and interest, property taxes, and homeowners insurance, is going to come to about $5,683. If you took a seller credit of $10,000 versus a price reduction, you can get your payment down almost $300 lower to a payment of $5,396. Look, to get that same payment of $5,396 as a price reduction, how much do you think you would have to knock off that price to get that same payment? Of course, we're assuming this is all about affordability and payment, right? So in order to negotiate that same payment, you would have to negotiate that price all the way down, $50,000 down to $852. That's not happening. If you want to save money, you have to make sure that you remember credit. Credit is everything. Number three, win in how to negotiate. Whoops, I gave you my last slide. One of the things that buyers are really the best advice I can give buyers is that there's many times throughout the process in when you can negotiate price. Now, here's or credits. Remember, we just talked about that. One of the biggest misconceptions is that once you get your offer accepted, that let me just rephrase it. When you get your offer accepted, the seller is agreeing to sell you that house at that price, but you're not necessarily agreeing to buy that house at that price yet. You're interested, but there's still inspections and stuff that you need to go through. So it's really important to understand that there's more than one time to negotiate a purchase price. The smart buyers are going to know when, and they're going to leverage it. And that's how they're going to pay less, both in rate and in housing prices in 2026. But here's the best advice I can give anybody. The smartest buyers are working with the right real estate agent. If you are working with the right real estate agent, 1, 2, and 3 are completely taken care of. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've worked with many amazing real estate agents, and I've worked with a lot of agents that have wonderful hearts, beautiful people, but negotiation is not one of their best suits. If you are not working with a great real estate agent, reach out. We have some amazing people I can refer you to. They're going to negotiate for you. They're going to work hard. They're going to make sure you don't overpay in 2026, because at the end of the day, when it comes to appreciation, if you overpay today, you're basically going to eliminate a lot of that appreciation that you should be gaining if you were working with the right real estate agent. All right, everybody, back to the call to action. If you are looking to buy in 2026 and you have not spoken with a lender, or even if you have, let me just double check everything right here. There's a QR code somewhere right there. It takes you to my calendar. It's free. There's no obligations. I'm not going to pull your credit. I'm not going to collect documents. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to put a strategy in place for you that's going to help you, your family, save money on your mortgage. We're going to help you negotiate all those things to help you win in 2026. My name is Paul Obrantz. I own Clear to Close Brokers. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you thought so, please refer it to somebody and make sure while you're here, you like and subscribe to my channel. I'm continually doing weekly market updates on interest rates, trying to put most common questions I get as a lender out there, because if my clients are asking you, you probably have that question too. And if any way I can help you out, please let me know. All right, everybody, take care.